I never thought a single night could change everything I believed about love, loyalty, and myself. Yet, as I stood at the edge of the forest, moonlight spilling over the trees like silver fire, I realized my entire world had just shattered. Damon the Alpha I had sworn my heart to, the one I had trusted with every secret I had had, betrayed me in a way I could never have imagined. The night had started like any other. The pack gathered near the old stone circle at the forest's heart, the air buzzing with the quiet rhythm of wolves and the hum of unseen magic. I could feel it in the hairs along my neck, the pull of something greater than myself. Damon was near, commanding the energy around him without even trying, as he always did. Everyone followed his lead. Everyone except me, who had trusted him with far more than I should have. I remember the first hint that something was wrong. The way he looked at her. My heart tightened, a cold, jagged edge cutting through the warmth of the evening. She was new to the pack, a stranger with eyes like dark amber and hair that caught the moonlight in waves. Damon's gaze lingered too long, his hand brushing hers just slightly longer than it should have. A small gesture, perhaps, but in that moment, it spoke louder than any words ever could. I told myself I was imagining it. That alpha instinct, that protective pull I had learned to trust, was warning me of something I didn't want to see. But the whispers began that night, curling through the trees like smoke rumors of forbidden alliances, of loyalties shifting in shadows, and I could feel the weight of betrayal settling into my bones. Heavier than any armor by the time the moon had climbed to its zenith, I could no longer ignore it. Damon, the man who had promised me forever, was standing too close to her, his hand on her shoulder in a way he never had with me. My chest tightened as if the forest itself were pressing in, and a low growl rose in my throat. More instinct than thought. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but something held me back for disbelief. Maybe even hope that I was wrong. Then I saw it. A flash of movement behind Damon's. Something inhuman. A glimmer of eyes that weren't quite human, watching me from the edge of the shadows. I froze. My pulse hammered in my ears. I had always known this forest was alive with more than just wolves. That magic lingered in the roots and stones in ways most humans would never understand. But tonight, it wasn't just magic. I could feel a presence, ancient and calculating, stirring among the trees. It was drawn to me, to the betrayal that threatened to consume my soul. I stepped back, the leaves crunching beneath my feet, and suddenly Damon's hand was on mine, warm, familiar but empty of the love I had thought it held. His eyes met mine, and for a moment I thought he would explain, would tell me that I had misunderstood. But instead, there was something else in them, a flicker of guilt quickly masked by a smirk I had once found irresistible. That smirk, once the symbol of our bond, now felt like a dagger twisting in my chest. I ran. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to leave the forest, the pack, and the man I had loved beyond reason. Behind me, the whispers of the trees seemed to sigh. And I thought I caught the eyes again, the inhuman eyes, following me through the mist. They weren't threatening, not yet, but they were waiting, patient. Like predators who sense weakness and opportunity. By the time I reached the clearing at the forest's edge, the moon had begun its descent, painting the world in a pale, uncertain light. My heart was still pounding, my mind a whirl of pain and confusion. Damon's betrayal had cut deeper than any wound I had ever known. But beneath the raw ache, there was another pulse, something I had buried in myself long ago. Fire. The fire of survival. The fire of something waiting to be awakened. And I knew, deep down, that I was standing at the crossroads of my life. Behind me lay the life I thought I wanted, the love I thought I could trust. Ahead of me, though I could not yet see, it was something unknown, something dangerous, but perhaps something that could heal the fractures in my heart. Something that might even turn the betrayal into a kind of rebirth. I didn't know what was out there in the shadows. Watching, waiting, but I could feel it calling my name. And for the first time in months, I didn't want to turn away. I didn't stop running until the forest Behind me became a blur of shadows, and the whispers of the pack faded into memory. My legs burned, my lungs ached, and yet every fiber of me refused to slow down. Somewhere deep in the undergrowth, eyes followed me. I could feel them patient, curious, waiting for me to stumble or falter, and for reasons I didn't yet understand. I didn't want to escape them entirely. I stumbled into a clearing I had never seen before. Moonlight spilled across the crumbling ruins of an old cathedral, its walls scarred by time and nature. Vines crept over broken stones, and the air smelled of damp earth and something older, something powerful. I paused, trying to catch my breath, my heart hammering with more than fear. There was something about this place that felt alive, as if it were holding its breath with me. Then I saw him. He stepped out from the shadow of a fallen archway. Tall, impossibly still, with pale skin that seemed to drink in the moonlight. His eyes, silver like steel, kissed by moonlight, locked onto mine. And for the first time since Damon's betrayal, I felt a flicker of calm in the storm of my mind. He didn't smile, not exactly. But there was a presence in his gaze that made the hairs along my neck rise. "You've run far," he said, his voice low, smooth, and yet carrying an edge that hinted at danger. "And yet you didn't run from me?" I swallowed hard. Something about him was not human, I realized instantly. The energy in the air around him pulsed, like the beat of a second heart that wasn't mine. I wanted to step back, but my feet felt rooted to the ground, pulled forward by a force I couldn't explain. Who are you?" I asked, my voice small, even as the tension coiled through me. "Lucian," he replied, "and you are exactly where you're meant to be." His gaze softened, almost imperceptibly, but it was enough to make my chest ache. "I've been waiting for someone like you. Someone betrayed, someone lost. Someone ready to be more than they ever believed possible." I wanted to run. I wanted to turn my back and disappear into the forest once again. But part of me, the part that had been buried under Damon's lies, wanted to stay. To listen, to learn. What are you?" I asked again, sensing that the answer would change everything. He took a step closer. Deliberate, and the air seemed to thrum with his presence. "Not entirely human," he said simply. "Not entirely bound by your world. But neither are you. Not anymore. You have been marked by betrayal, by loss, by fire. You can either let it destroy you, or you can rise." I shivered, not from cold, but from the weight of his words. He spoke of things I had barely dared to imagine: power, freedom, a chance to reclaim myself. And yet there was a warning hidden in every syllable, an edge I couldn't ignore. There was danger here, and I could feel it, sharp and immediate, beneath the pull of his voice. "You mean you can help me?" I whispered, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and hope. "I can teach you," Lucian said. "Teach you to trust your instincts, your strength, your senses. Teach you to survive, to thrive. But it will not be easy, and it will not be safe." I glanced back toward the forest where Damon's pack had vanished, and a flicker of fear mingled with something else, something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in months. Determination? I had been broken, yes. Betrayed, yes. But perhaps I had been led here for a reason. Perhaps the path forward was not in hiding, but in embracing this unknown, this shadow, this him. Lucian moved closer, his eyes never leaving mine, and I felt an almost magnetic pull. Not desire, not yet, but an undeniable recognition, a sense that our fates were entwined. I didn't understand it, couldn't name it. But it made my heartbeat stutter in ways I hadn't felt since Damon's betrayal. "Are you like him?" I asked, my throat tight. "A vampire. A creature of the night." He chuckled softly, the sound echoing through the ruins, unsettling and familiar all at once. "Names are dangerous. Labels even more so. I am what I am, and soon you will discover what you are meant to be. But first you must choose fear or fire." I stared at him, at the calm, commanding presence that radiated power without words. And I realized the choice had already been made. I was too far from who I had been before, too wounded. too hungry for something more to turn back as the wind swept through the broken arches. Carrying the scent of rain and earth, I knew that my journey had begun. The shadows were alive, and so was the fire inside me. But the forest was full of secrets, and Lucien was one of them. I didn't know whether he was friend, teacher, or something far more dangerous. What I did know was that I couldn't ignore him more the pull of the darkness, the unknown and the destiny that was beginning to weave itself around me and somewhere deep in the ruins. In the silent spaces between the stone and the moonlight, I sensed it, the real danger. The real awakening was only just beginning. Days passed, though I lost count of time in the ruins. Lucien moved like a shadow beside me, patient but relentless, teaching me to sense what I had ignored all my life: the rhythm of the forest, the pulse of energy in every stone, every leaf, even the faint heartbeat of creatures that moved unseen. I had always thought my life was ordinary, tethered to a pack that claimed loyalty but delivered betrayal. Now I was learning to be more than I had ever dared to imagine. I discovered the truth first in my reflection in a pool of water, eyes sharper, senses keener, movements swifter than any human should manage. The fire inside me was no longer just anger at Damon. It was energy, raw and wild, demanding control, demanding mastery. Lucien never touched me, ever imposed, but his presence was a guidepost. His eyes followed my movements, silent encouragement hidden in their intensity. I wanted to falter, to doubt myself, but every time I glanced at him, I remembered Damon's betrayal and the hollow ache it had left. I would not let that define me yet. Even as I trained, the shadows of the past would not release me. Damon's face haunted my thoughts, his smug assurance still echoing in the hollows of my memory. It was then that Lucien spoke of a truth I had not dared to imagine. He never loved you the way you believed. Lucien said quietly one night as the ruins glimmered under a thin crescent moon. His voice carried no cruelty, only honesty, sharp enough to cut through the lies I had wrapped around my heart. And yet, that doesn't diminish what you are capable of. His betrayal. It was the catalyst you needed. I froze. His words should have been cold, but they were not. They were liberating. The fire inside me roared, and for the first time I realized I could be more than a victim. I could be something unstoppable. But freedom had its cost. One evening, as the forest thickened under the weight of fog, a familiar scent hit me like a blade. Damon, I had sworn never to cross his path again. Never to allow myself to feel fear or longing for him, but there he was, standing at the edge of the clearing, his shadow stretching long and threatening under the moonlight. "Thought you could escape me?" His voice was smooth, dangerous, like it always had been. He was beautiful, intoxicating. But now I saw the cracks beneath the confidence, the arrogance that had always hidden his deceit. I did not run. I could not. Not now. Not after the fire had begun to awaken inside me. "You've changed," Damon said, a smirk curling at his lips. "I almost don't recognize you." "Gah," I said, my voice steady though my pulse raced. "Because you don't. And I'm not the same person you think you left behind." Damon stepped closer, and for a moment I almost faltered, not because of desire, but because of the memory of the trust I had once given him. Then I felt Lucien's presence at the edge of my vision, silent but unwavering. A reminder that I was no longer alone. "You're reckless," Damon said, eyes narrowing. "This power, this fire, it doesn't belong to you. You don't know what you're dealing with." "I know enough," I replied. "I know that betrayal taught me more than your lies ever could." That was when the air shifted. A low hum rose from the forest, a vibration that made the hairs on my arms stand. It wasn't Damon. It wasn't even me. Something ancient had awakened in response to the tension, the anger, the bond that I had begun to form with Lucien. The shadows moved differently, alive in ways that felt both protective and warning. Lucien stepped beside me then, his hand brushing mine not by chance, but deliberate, grounding me in a way that was more intimate than words could describe. The pull between us was undeniable. It was not passion as the world defined it, but connection, trust, recognition, and something far older than either of us. "You must choose," Lucian said softly, almost to me, almost to the forest itself. "The path of fire is never simple. Damon will test your strength, your heart, your will. But the fire inside you is yours to command." I swallowed, knowing the choice was not between Damon or Lucian, but between who I had been and who I would become. One path promised destruction, manipulation, and hollow illusions. The other promised strength, awakening, and the danger of an unknown but real bond. As Damon's eyes locked on mine, I realized something shocking. His betrayal had not ended with the past. He intended to claim me again, to manipulate the loyalty I had once given freely. And for the first time, I saw clearly that this was personal. This was no longer about love lost. It was about survival, power, and the life I would fight to reclaim. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and in the stillness, I felt it, the fire rising, the shadows watching, and the promise that the journey ahead would not be safe. But it would be mine, and I was ready. The forest had never felt so alive. Every leaf, every shadow, every whisper of wind carried tension. As if the woods themselves had been holding their breath for the moment I could no longer ignore. Damon's presence lingered, an invisible pressure pressing at my chest. I could feel Lucian's gaze on me, steady, unwavering, protective. Yet tonight, everything was about to change. I had been training with Lucian for what felt like weeks, though time had become slippery in the ruins. He had guided me through exercises that sharpened my senses, strengthened my reflexes, and awakened the fire inside me. I could hear animals moving through the forest long before they appeared, sense the tremor of the earth beneath my feet, and even feel faint echoes of Damon's emotions lingering like smoke. But that night, something new happened. A sudden tremor shook the ground beneath my feet, and the forest erupted into chaos. Shadows twisted unnaturally, stretching toward us like grasping fingers. A growl, low and unearthly, rolled through the trees. It wasn't Damon. It wasn't anything I had seen before. My instincts screamed at me to run, but Lucian's hand on my shoulder anchored me, steady and strong. "This is it," he said quietly. "The forest is testing you. It will not allow weakness." Before I could ask what he meant, a figure emerged from the shadows, a wolf unlike any I had known. Its eyes burned like embers, and its size dwarfed even the largest alpha I had ever seen. And then I realized with a shock that it bore Damon's scent, but twisted, corrupted by something darker. "He's not alone," I whispered, fear coiling in my stomach. Lucian's jaw tightened. "You need to know the truth, Damon. He's been touched by forces you cannot yet comprehend. He has been marked by a darkness that twists his power, his mind, and his intentions. This is no longer just about betrayal. He is no longer the man you loved." My chest tightened as the words sank in. Damon had always been dangerous. Yes, but I had believed in the love we shared. And now? He was something else entirely, something that made my blood run cold. He's a threat," I asked, voice trembling. "More than you know," Lucian said. "And you have a choice. You can face him with what you have learned, or you can run and hide. But hiding will cost you far more than courage ever could." I swallowed hard, the fire inside me rising, fueled by both fear and anger. Damon had taken everything from me already, my trust, my innocence, my certainty in love. But I would not allow him to take my strength, my power, my destiny. The wolf stepped closer, and in that moment, I realized that Damon had not simply betrayed me. He had aligned himself with a dark force that threatened to consume the forest and everyone I cared about. The choice became unbearable clear. I could let him continue, or I could rise and confront him. Lucian's hand brushed mine, not by accident, but deliberate. The gesture was grounding, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with desire and everything to do with trust. "I will stand with you," he said. "But the path ahead is yours. You must decide what kind of person you will be." I felt a surge of clarity. Betrayal had shattered me, but fire was rising in its place. I could harness it, control it, and turn it into the strength I needed. And in that moment, I understood something else. My bond with Lucian was not just about survival. It was about trust, about loyalty, about finding someone who would see me for who I truly was. Even when I doubted myself, I stepped forward, my senses alert, every nerve alive with anticipation. Then I will face him, I said, whatever it takes. The wolf snarled, and suddenly Damon emerged from behind it, his form flickering between human and beast. His eyes, once warm and familiar, were now sharp, predatory, and cold. He smiled, and my stomach twisted not with longing, but with the sickening awareness of the danger he represented. "You think you've grown stronger?" he said, voice low and mocking. "But you don't know the power you're facing. You're still mine." I raised my chin, feeling the forest pulse beneath me, feeling the fire in my blood. "I am not yours," I said, "and I will not be. Not anymore." Lucian moved closer, placing himself between us, his silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Be ready," he warned. "This is only the beginning. He will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine." As Damon's shadow stretched across the clearing, the forest seemed to darken, the air thick with tension and the weight of unspoken threats. And then, in the silence that followed, a sudden, sharp sound broke through a branch, snapping somewhere behind me. I whirled, heart racing, only to see nothing, except a flicker of movement in the shadows that wasn't Damon, wasn't Lucian, and wasn't human. Something else was coming, something ancient, something powerful. And I knew with a certainty that made my pulse thunder, that nothing, neither love, betrayal, nor fire, would ever be the same again. The clearing felt smaller somehow, the shadows heavier, as if the forest itself pressed in on me. Damon's eyes burned with a mix of anger and hunger, the corruption of dark power twisting his features into something I barely recognized. He had been my alpha, my mate, the man I had loved with everything I had. And now he was the embodiment of betrayal and danger. Lucian stood beside me, calm and unwavering, but I barely noticed him. My focus was all on Damon, the lies, the deception, the fear he had instilled, and the fire that had been growing inside me for weeks, waiting for this moment to rise. "You've grown," Damon said, voice low and predatory. "But do you think you can stand against me? Against what I have become?" "I don't have to stand against you," I said, heart pounding. "I have to stand for myself. And for everyone you've hurt." The forest seemed to react to my words. The wind picked up, whipping through the trees, carrying the scent of moss, rain, and something older, something alive and powerful. I felt it answering me, joining my strength with the energy I had honed under Lucian's guidance. My senses sharpened. The forest itself became a part of me. Damon's smirk faltered for a moment, and I saw the flicker of doubt beneath the arrogance he had worn like armor. But he didn't hesitate. In a single motion, he shifted Volf, shadow, predator towering over me, his fangs glinting in the moonlight. My stomach twisted, but I did not step back. I would not. Lucian's hand found mine, grounding me. "Remember," he whispered, "the fire is yours. Command it. Don't fear it." And then it happened. The air seemed to vibrate as my energy, fear, anger, love, and determination fused into something tangible, expanded outward. I could feel Damon's strength meeting mine, and for the first time, I realized something shocking. I didn't need to destroy him. I only needed to face him, to stand in my own power. And the forest would do the rest. "You cannot control me anymore," I said, voice steady, even as my heart thundered. "You never could, and you never will." For a heartbeat, he hesitated. Then the wolf-likeness melted back into human form, his hands curling into fists. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "You're making a mistake that cannot be undone." Hut! I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I felt the fire inside me, the rebirth Lucian had helped me claim. I could sense Damon's intentions, his anger, his fear, all tangled together. And I realized the truth. His power had always been dependent on control over me, over the pack, over belief. I had given him that control once, but I was done. I choose my own path, I said, raising my hands toward the night sky. The forest responded, light filtering through the trees in streaks of silver and green, the shadows twisting to shield me. Damon staggered slightly, eyes wide in disbelief. And in that moment, I knew he understood. He had lost not because I overpowered him physically, but because I had reclaimed myself. He fell silent, watching me. And I felt a strange ache, a memory of what we once had, twisted by everything that had come after. But I could not mourn him. I could only move forward. Lucian stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. "It's done," he said softly, his presence steadying me. "He will not harm you or the forest again." I exhaled, the tension in my body melting slightly, replaced by a strange mixture of relief, sorrow, and triumph. Damon would survive, perhaps, but the darkness that had possessed him would no longer control me. I had faced the deepest betrayal, confronted the corrupted truth of the man I had loved, and emerged stronger. The forest seemed to settle, the shadows retreating, the wind softening. Lucian's eyes met mine, and I felt the bond between us not romantic in the sense of desire, but profound, unshakable, a trust forged in fire and danger. I had thought love could only bring pain, but I was learning it could also guide, protect, and strengthen. "What now?" I asked, voice quiet, almost afraid of breaking the fragile calm. "Now," Lucian said, "we rebuild. You reclaim what was stolen, and you embrace who you truly are. There will be challenges, yes, but nothing you cannot face." I nodded, the fire inside me still burning, but tempered with clarity. Damon's shadow lingered at the edge of the forest, a reminder of the past, of betrayal, but it could no longer touch me. I was no longer the girl who had run blindly, trusting too easily. I was reborn as dawn began to break, spilling gold and pink across the treetops. I realized the magnitude of what I had gained, my power, my freedom, and a bond with someone who would stand beside me. Not above me, through whatever came next. But just as I allowed myself a moment of peace, a subtle tremor beneath the earth reminded me the forest still held secrets, and the darkness that had touched Damon was only one of many forces waiting in the shadows. My journey was far from over, and deep in my chest I felt it, a fire that would never die, and a courage that would carry me through everything yet to come. The forest was quiet that morning, as if it had exhaled after the chaos of the night. Light filtered softly through the trees, painting the leaves in shades of gold and green. I walked slowly, every step deliberate, feeling the pulse of life beneath my feet. It was the first time in months that the world felt safe, not because danger had vanished entirely, but because I had found something stronger than fear. Myself, Lucian, moved beside me, silent and steady. He didn't need to speak. His presence was enough. We had survived the storm, faced the corruption of someone I had once loved, and emerged whole, reborn from betrayal and fire. The bond between us was quiet but undeniable, a trust forged in shadows and strengthened by choices, not circumstance. We reached the edge of the clearing where the first hints of dawn touched the horizon. The air smelled of earth, moss, and the faint tang of magic lingering in the ruins. Damon was gone. The darkness that had corrupted him had faded with the night, leaving only the memory of what had been and the reminder of the power I now carried. I didn't feel joy for his absence. There was no satisfaction in the downfall of someone I had loved. There was only peace. I paused, closing my eyes, and let the wind brush across my face. I remembered the girl I had been, naive, trusting, heartbroken, and I realized she had not been lost entirely. She had been tempered, strengthened, and transformed. Betrayal had been the fire that forged me. And now I understood something crucial. Survival was not just about avoiding pain. It was about embracing the growth that comes from it. Lucian cleared his throat softly, drawing me from my thoughts. "You've changed," he said, voice gentle but firm. and you will continue to grow. You're no longer the one who ran from betrayal or fear. You've become someone who can face it tanned, rise above it. I smiled, a real unburdened smile, something I hadn't felt in months. I never thought I'd say this, I admitted, but thank you for guiding me, for trusting me. His silver eyes held a flicker of warmth, something I hadn't expected from someone so ancient, so powerful. We trusted each other, he said simply. That's what matters. We walked together in silence, the forest around us alive with the morning chorus of birds and the whisper of leaves. I noticed the small things, the sunlight glinting on dew, the way the branches swayed gently, the scent of earth and growth, and for the first time, I appreciated life in its quiet, simple beauty. I thought of Damon, of what had been lost and of what I had gained. Love could break you, yes, but it could also teach you, guide you, and reveal your strength. I had learned to trust again, not blindly, but wisely. I had learned that bonds formed in honesty, respect, and shared courage could withstand more than pain or betrayal. Lucien stopped at the crest of a hill, the forest opening before us like a world renewed. "This is yours now," he said, gesturing to the valley below. "All of it. Your choices, your path. You've earned the right to decide what comes next." I took a deep breath, letting the weight of that realization settle over me. I had been betrayed, hunted, tested, and forged in fire. But I had survived, and I had grown. I was no longer the girl who had clung to love that was never mine to hold. I was reborn, stronger, wiser, and free. I don't know what the future holds, I said quietly, but I do know I won't face it alone. Lucien smiled faintly, a rare expression that softened his features. "And I will be beside you as long as you wish it. That is my choice and my promise." We stood together for a long moment, looking out over the world that had once seemed so uncertain. The sun rose higher, spilling warmth across the valley, and I felt it in my bones. The fire that had once threatened to consume me had become a steady flame, guiding me, giving me strength. Lighting the way forward, I realized something profound then. Love was not only about being seen by someone else, but about seeing yourself clearly, even in the darkest moments. It was about trust, courage, and the willingness to rise, no matter how devastating the fall. Turning to Lucien, I spoke the words I had longed to feel. I am ready. Ready to face whatever comes next, ready to trust again, ready to live fully. He nodded, and for the first time I understood the true depth of our bond. It was not the fleeting passion of a moment, nor the illusion of control or power. It was something enduring, something built in fire and shadow, strengthened by truth, something that could not be broken. As we began our descent into the valley, leaving the ruins and the night behind, I felt the last remnants of fear and doubt fall away. The forest, the shadows, the past, they were part of me, but they no longer controlled me. I was reborn. I had survived betrayal. I had embraced my power. And I had found a bond in the unexpected, a love not tainted by control, but strengthened by trust. And in that quiet, golden morning, I finally understood. Sometimes the darkest nights lead to the brightest dawns.